Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we've got something a little bit different. We're going to be breaking through the COG dedicated roster. So COG is our one life Arma milsim unit, and I got a lot of questions recently talking about how you guys want to see how it all functions in the organizational side, just because we've been showing you all these dope videos, but I get a lot of people who ask, hey, how do I start a unit like this? Or, what does the structure of COG actually look like? So that's what we're going to be going into today. We're just going to be sharing with you how it's worked for us and what we do on the structure side of things. So once again, this is not necessarily the guide or the end all be all of how to run an Arma unit. This is just how we've done it. And in the past, over the past 5 years, I've led a whole bunch of different Arma groups and milsim groups, from casual to hardcore, from, 9-man elements to, company size stuff with the Liberation server and such. But for operations themselves, this has been the formula that has been the most successful. And I do want to throw out a couple disclaimers. Of course, this would not have been possible without all of the input and help that we've gotten from our SMEs and our Ranger guys who have put a lot of work into helping build a COG into a Ranger inspired style of unit. So that's going to be Grim, Controlled Pairs, and even Justin Red earlier on as well helped a bunch, and Savage. They were all huge in the inception of the unit, and that's where we get a lot of our TTPs and SOPs. So big thanks to all of those guys. So let's get into the actual platoon now. So we run a full platoon with attachments and an air stack. So let's go through the ground guys first, just because that's where all the meat is. So we've got an HQ element that's generally going to be comprised of myself, the RTO, who has comms with both Zeus, as well as is able to listen in on the AirNet or the TADS, as well as get direct contact with the line or gun squad should I need some help doing so. So those are the two 1-6 and 1-6 Romeo slots that we have. 1-7 is the call sign for the platoon sergeant. That's going to be Muskul, and he pretty much flexes to any points of friction. He helps with accountability, with the Casavax, and he's pretty much, as in real world, the platoon daddy. Anything that needs to get handled, that must get handled, he's there to make sure that it does get handled correctly. The next thing that we have are our 1-8s, or our JTACs or FACs. These are the air guys. These are guys who are talking non-stop during the ops, calling in the 9 lines, calling in additional Casavax and air assets. They're always talking. They're always calling things in as doctrinally as possible. And yeah, we've generally got 3 FACs. We used to have 4, but it's a very, very demanding job. And there's a lot that, we try to make sure is actually authentic. So a lot of training that these guys go through, taking in a whole bunch of experience from actual SMEs and actual FACs that we also have in unit as well. So that's kind of where we've been able to really excel on the authenticity side of things, is just the amount of members in the soft community that actually play in COG is quite surprising. And I think even at just the general level, as far as service members, either active or veteran, I think about half the unit, if not maybe 75% of the unit now, is active duty or reserve or a veteran. So it's pretty cool. There's a big vet culture within the community, and yeah, it's where we've been able to lean on a lot of these guys who have a lot of experience and actually apply it in a video game, which is fun for them, fun for us, to get it as close to realism as possible. But moving on to the next call sign here, we have Kilo 19, which is the platoon medic. Now, the platoon medic is essentially going to be that top 1 medic who can push all the drugs that is needed and conduct all those procedures that, the normal ARFRs or the advanced ranger first responders are unable to on the line. So it's very important that he's alive and safe in order to provide aid to the element, just because realism side, we don't have like full-blown medics in every single squad. We just have the 1 platoon medic and ARFRs seated throughout the element. So he's pretty much in charge of doing all the complicated stuff as far as cat medical is concerned, because we do play with cat medical now. So chest seals, compound fractures, all that other drug stuff. He's mainly in charge of all that. So we do need a platoon medic who is through and through versed with the March algorithm and how to address all those concerns on the battlefield. But that's pretty much going to wrap up the HQ element. We're going to move now into the line squads. So that's Kilo 11, Kilo 12, and Kilo 13. Those are our 3 line squads. Kilo 14 is our weapon squad, and we'll get into the weapon squad and its duties later. But the meat of the platoon, once again, is going to be the line squad. So the line squad is really structured like a standard US Army squad. It's got 9 guys with 1 squad leader and 2 fire teams of 4. Those fire teams are mirrored with a team leader, grenadier, automatic rifleman, and a normal rifleman. And basically, there's 1 ARFR in every line squad, and that once again stands for Advanced Ranger First Responder. Those guys are able to do a little more medical than the standard guys or the line guys, but not as much medical as the platoon medic. So I really don't have too much to note on this end, just because it's a standard 9-man US Army squad. You've seen this a whole bunch in squad. In other games, it's pretty, cookie cutter. Moving on to the weapon squad, however, this is where things kind of get a little bit different than, I think, traditional armor units. I don't necessarily think I've seen any armor unit run a weapon squad like we have. There have been some that have, emulate it to a degree from real world, but I think COG runs the most doctrinally or authentically accurate weapon squad as far as rangers are concerned in Arma or in milsim, and that's been a really cool thing. Once again, leaning specifically, the help here has been from Savage, who was a ranger in 375, who's helped us a whole bunch with our weapon squad stuff. But continuing on with the weapon squad and its structure, it has a squad leader, or the weapon squad leader, and then it has 3 guns. Those 3 guns are comprised of 3-man teams. That's going to be the gun team leader, who's actually directing the gun and that small 3-man element, the actual gunner himself, who's just pulling that trigger when he's directed and where he's pointed, and you have the assistant gunner, or the ammo bearers, and those guys are changing belts, changing out the barrels, or just as the name suggests, bringing the extra ammo. So those are our 3 gun teams in the weapon squad. They're all mirrored exactly the same, so 9 guys, and then we have a hat team attached, or kind of internal to the weapon squad, and that's going to be a goose with the standard goose rounds, and a team leader for that goose gunner. And when I say goose, it's a Carl Gustav. But the main thing that really sets the weapon squad apart is, proper shift and lift fire calls for one. Just understanding that whole procedure between the line squads and the weapon squads on assaults is just, the bread and butter. That's the thing that's going to start getting your weapon squad to be an actual support by fire, and executing that support by fire safely and effectively. But we also add, once again, those belt linking, that weapon barrel changes. That's really integral to actually making sure that the guns are running at proper cadence and they're up at the proper times. Whether it's also running that, 1-up drills in case the gunner gets shot, and having proper fire commands, right? So rapid 2, sustain 4, understanding what those all means as far as the weapon squad is concerned. It's pretty cool to hear. If you really know what you're looking for, what to listen for when you're on the line or standing behind the weapon squad, and you can really hear those calls get made, whether it's the rapid 2s or the prepare to initiate, it really is a sight to behold, and it's fantastic to hear, like literal music to the ears, when you hear a full weapon squad operating like a well-tuned machine. It is absolutely amazing. But now we're going to roll into attachments, and the first attachment you're going to hear is probably one that you've listened to a lot, which is Snot, right? You've probably heard us say Snot a whole bunch of times on the Platoon net. So what is Snot? Snot is a sniper and sniper observation team. It's a 2-man precision fires platform, essentially. Those are the snipers. Those are the actual snipers in the platoon. So generally, we'll roll with a 2-man Snot element attached to first platoon. In addition to Snot, we also have a mortar attachment, a EOD attachment, and then we're planning on having a K9 attachment. Mortars, pretty self-explanatory. They're the 60 or 81 millimeter organic mortar platform for the platoon, or IDF platform for the platoon. And we've recently started messing around with some switchblade action thanks to a recent switchblade mod on the Arma 3 workshop. So mainly for mine-ward obstacle clearances and platoon attacks, we'll bring the mortar team out, and they're there to help provide a very local IDF platform for whether it's HE or smoke or even a loom sometimes on target. So mortars, very helpful, once again, especially for that mine-ward obstacle clearance, as well as dedicated or deliberate platoon attacks. The third attachment that COG runs is EOD, which is Explosive Ordnance Disposal. Right now, it's a 1-man slot. We're thinking about expanding it to 2. And the basic idea behind EOD is very straightforward. They're there to check and make sure if any device needs to be disarmed, bypassed, destroyed, etc. And they're there to detect those threats as well. This is mainly a big thanks to Jeff's IED mod. He makes a great IED mod that makes IED defusal a little bit more interactive. And he's also made the Foxhole mod for Karma Company. So Jeff, fantastic guy. Really thankful for all his work. Now moving on to the next attachment that we don't necessarily have yet, but it's always been planned. We're mainly just waiting for a mod to come out from Mooney, and that's Mooney's K9 mod. So we're mainly looking to add a K9 and a K9 handler as soon as we have the tools to do so. We've looked at the current dog mods on the workshop, and it's just like they're not necessarily built for our needs. And a lot of the mods or tweaks that we have as far as the pack that we run with, it's very specific and coded for our needs and for our mission set, or the COG actual unit. I'll put a link down below to one of the mods that we've made for the unit, which is the US Ranger Products mod. This has some things that you guys might want to use out there. It's a very, very scrappy mod. It's built straight for functionality for COG, but it's got the Moses poles for trench clearance. It's got assault ladders that you can actually carry out there. It's got a whole bunch of tweaks and small stuff that COG primarily uses for our events, but feel free to download it, check it out, and maybe you can mess around with it with your unit. The next thing we're going to be talking about here is the big boys, the boys that actually put down the majority of the heavy lifting in operations, as is similar to real life, right? So CAS and our flight stack. One of the things that we do in COG is we run a flight stack or a flight pool. What I mean by that is, as opposed to ground, air is kind of just a pool of pilots, and those pilots get dealt whatever needs to be dealt for that mission. So everyone is able to fly whatever air platform. We primarily use MH-47s, but they can fly Blackhawks, Littlebirds, DAPs, Littlebird DAPs. What else do we use? We very sparingly use the AC-130, mainly because it is quite strong. If we bring out the AC-130, there's got to be a big reason to do so. Mainly because, one, server resources. It takes a lot to bring that bad boy out. Number two, it just kills everything. So that's a definite fun one. But the main fixed wing CAS platform I think that we use these days is the FA-18, and then sometimes we'll use the A-10. So that pretty much encompasses all of the rotary that I believe that our stack uses. We also have been bringing out the AH-64 or the Apache more recently, just because our flight pool has grown, and being able to see a pilot and a gunner has been more of a thing. But the one bird I think that we use the absolute most is going to be the MQ-9 Reaper. And while it isn't necessarily, you know, a piloted airframe, that UAV is essential for all of our soft style missions, just giving us proper slant calls or ISR on target. It is a fantastic tool, and definitely you can see why Soft Elements Real World really rely on this airframe, just because it does provide so much intel for the ground guys. But I think that covers pretty much the entire platoon stack at this point. I hope this kind of gives you a good idea on the structure of COG. I know I didn't get too in the weeds with a lot of it, but basically just remember, right? Like, this is a Arma 3 milsim video game unit. It's not one-to-one with the real thing. It was inspired heavily by the real thing, but it isn't necessarily the only way you can run a successful Arma unit. So maybe this provides you some structure for your guys. Maybe this helps you out, give you some ideas. And this has been a tried and true kind of structure for us for a year now. And it's been, once again, the 5 years that I've been doing milsim, this has been the most successful structure. And I can't thank all those guys, all those SMEs that helped us in the beginning. So once again, big thanks to Grim, to Savage, to even Siege, and then Controlled Pairs, Justin Reds, all great guys. And they really went above and beyond as far as helping us get on our feet. And we just ran with it from there. That's pretty much all I've got for you guys today. I hope you did enjoy this kind of behind the scenes look. I hope it answers some questions, and I'll probably do a mod video breakdown soon. I know you guys always want to know the mods that we use, and I'll probably make some kind of video talking about the mods a little bit later on. But that's all I've got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Good hunting out there.